Hello viewers, it's Mr. Michael from Screen Review, bringing you a new podcast from my topic called The Project Rate Review. And like always, I'm going to speak very loudly, very clearly, and very slowly in case you don't understand it. Also, I try to do my best not to be so hard during this art podcast recording as well, not to cause any art feedback as well. And finally, if you're under 18, this art podcast recording will contain show adult language. Once again, if you're under 18, this art podcast recording will contain show adult language. Now, if you're over 18, then you need to go about this art podcast recording. So let's get into the latest episode of Gavan Infinity. So basically, after talking to Kiki, after Kiki talked to Agent Gato's emote gear, and basically getting some more information about the Auto Group. So basically, the Auto Group wants to cause a emotional signal, spreading negative emote energy throughout the universe. So basically, after Kiki spoke to Gato's Gato's emote gear, who was Racing's mentor, who got took down by Death Gavan, formerly known as Destiny Gavan and whatnot. So anyway. So after reporting to that boss, boss Carol, who is a dude, and basically Carol started to have that flashback, started to have flashes of his vision come true, that it's going to be a massive war between Gavins and whatnot. And so the message Gavin or the Gavin civil and taking that. Against Death Gavan and whatnot. So anyway, meanwhile, the bad guys, just like the fat dude and Kiki's principal, who are all evil, who is now part of the Zolot group, are basically is in a main merch space, gathering all the followers to activate their plan. Their plan was to start with Raisin's Earth first, and to spread a negative miasma and cause the emotional syndrome to and cast it throughout Raisin's universe and whatnot. So basically, they started with. So basically, they're gonna use all the followers to, channel all their negative emotional energy towards Rachel Earth to cause a negative vortex to spread throughout Racing Earth. So basically, they carry on the plan, and basically things was not going very well on Racing Earth. So basically, Racing and his crew tried to do their best and whatnot. Racing transported to Gavan, but Daishi was fighting. Aggie was pretty much, she didn't get her hands dirty. So basically, Aggie didn't really fight as much. So basically Daichi and whatnot, Wasabi, even Padawan and Wasabi got it in at the time. Karen was basically was trying to organize things from the space station and whatnot. So basically we didn't get a chance to see him fight and whatnot. And basically. Every time he tried to close the negative vortex, a merc space head kept on popping up. More merc space heads keeps on popping up. So basically, things were about. So basically, there was a lot of people who were affected with negative emote energy. Attacking innocents and whatnot, and basically, and a lot of emote monsters, attacking innocent people who wasn't affected by the negative vortex and whatnot. So basically, out of nowhere, Kunai showed up, and basically with the other Gavin. So basically, Loomis and Vasido, he showed up, and basically, as we know that Loomis So basically, turns out that Kunai's sister Hasna figured a way how to make sure that the other Gavins like Loomis and Basito are able to go to different dimensions without facing without giving that whole dimensional phase out thing and whatnot. So anyway, so basically, Big Bree and the Ant and Gavin Amigo on them were helped out and basically destroyed the negative vortexes while that was spreading around, racing the Earth, and basically they were able to work together to destroy the negative vortex on Gavin's Earth and whatnot. So basically everything was just, so basically everything was just like, was they was able to stop the vortexes from spreading across Racing's Earth on Earth Alpha. So basically, the bad guys that's Kevin the Civil was like, it's time to go to plan. It's time to go to plan B. So basically, the plan B was to, that Kevin will lead a fleet of a fleet of spaceships from the mecha space, and basically just go after, and just go towards Gavin's Earth, go towards, use those ships to spread negative emotion with the people, with the help of the followers of Zala and whatnot. So anyway, so basically looking for them, Carol a fleet of Cosmo ships ready for all the Gavins. So basically, all of the weapon units and all. So basically, we have a fleet of Cosmo trigger ships ready to deal with Death Gavin's Merc fleet ships and whatnot. So basically, Raisin and other Gavin gathered together on the Cosmic ship fleets, and basically, like usual, if they had to wait approval from the commanders, to transform their ships into robot mode. But turns out that one of them was working for the All Out group, and basically didn't get the approval for the guys to transform their fleet ships into robot mode. And basically, lucky for the Wasabi and Petaman, basically knocked them out, and basically, so basically every time that Gavin wants to transform his robot into, his spaceship into robot mode, he needs to get approval from his commanding officer and other and 5 more high rank commanders. And basically, Wasabi knocked out the traitor, and basically, put his thumb put his thumb on the keyboard, and basically the guy was able to transform their fleet of ships into robot mode, and basically, they was fighting against the modern ships and whatnot. So anyway, things was going good to the Galvins until Racing started Death Gavin, and basically him and Death Gavin got into a sword fight, and basically hit in their robots. It got into a fight as well, and basically Gavin basically gave a short speech about Death Gavin, about Death Gavin, about the things that Death Gavin is doing right now and whatnot. So anyway, basically Racing was able to defeat Death Gavin, and basically his ship, the Ark, the Gavatron. The Gavatron Ark was destroyed, and basically it seems like Racing was about to arrest them, and basically was about to arrest them, but one of his negative mecha units was saved Death Gavin, and basically the bad guys who was watching from the main Merc space decided to put the main 3 ships of the fleet of Merc ships together, and basically these three ships could form a giant, like a giant laser of negative emote monster pointing at the Gavins and Raging Earth. So basically, so basically the Gavin fleet, basically all the guys try to get their emotional burst, through the so basically, all the Gavins get their emotional burst. So basically, channel all their emotional burst powers through with their remote gears, and basically was able to stop the negative the negative emotion, the negative emotion lasers from the last three amazing ships from hitting Raging Earth and destroy them. And basically raising so basically with the other Gavins, with their emotional burst and their emote gears, they was able to stop that from happening and whatnot. So basically, the bad guys, the other group and the bad guys really suffer a major defeat and whatnot. So basically, the other Gavins were happy that they worked together to stop the other group from spreading negative emotional syndrome throughout Raging Earth, and basically hoping and returning all the favors that Raging helped them out with and whatnot. So basically, while the Gavins were having this celebration, Commander Carroll was talking. Who was the dude? Commander Carroll was talking to the supreme boss of the guys police in Raging universe, and basically you and the other Gavins did a good job, but the other groups are still out there, and plus we have a big problem. So basically, because of all this trend, because of all the emotional activity that the armor plate Gavin system is down, it has been shut down. So basically, Carol was like, "Oh no, that means that so basically that it has been shut down because it's not so the armor plate system or the Gavin system allows Raging to transform into Gavin Infinity, but just the Gavin system because of all the emote energy that went down in this episode, the system went down in Raging Earth, but also affected the other Gravitron system from the other Earths that the Gavins come from and whatnot. So basically, that's how the episode ended on this note. So anyway, I felt like this episode was good, but I felt like it was kind of rushed at the same time as well. Cause honestly, I felt like this series needed more episodes to drag out the story a bit more and build up towards this final battle. But it is what it is. So anyway, this episode was okay, but I still believe that this series needed more episodes to further build up the story a bit and get more characters and whatnot, and basically, we see a lot of Gavins we saw Gavins we never saw before in this episode. We didn't get a chance to be introduced to in this episode, but the episode was alright to me. So anyway, we got to think about the latest episode of Gavin Infinity. Good, bad, or just okay? Please let me know in the comments below. Anyway, shout out for Screen Reviews 1.